Hello people of the internet, welcome to Historic Outdoors. I'm Lloyd and today we're indoors and we're making some stuff to go outdoors. Today we're going to do some medieval sausage. Medieval sausage is a little bit different from modern sausage, mostly spices and the way it's made, but not too difficult. You can do it at home if you want, and it's the kind of thing you can take to a camping event or you know, anywhere you find yourself in the great outdoors. So yeah, have a look and maybe you want to make some sausage too. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grind up some spices, and today we're going to be using 4 different spices. We're going to be using long pepper, we're going to be using coriander seeds, we're going to be using summer savory, and we're going to be using some garlic. So long pepper is typically what they refer to as pepper in the medieval era. If you see a recipe it calls for pepper, they probably want this stuff. Garlic has been used forever in recipes, medieval and stretching back way before that. Coriander seed is one of those things they thought was an aphrodisiac way back in time, especially in the medieval period. So it's not the kind of thing that you would put in to sausage. And the same thing goes for the summer savory. Summer savory was very popular in the Mediterranean. Still very popular today in Bulgaria, which is just north of Turkey, and very popular in the area of Atlantic Canada where I'm from. Also considered a aphrodisiac, and not the kind of thing that you would want to cook with if you were a respectable person in the Middle Ages. In fact, medieval monks tried to eradicate this stuff from outside their monasteries in case the monks might be susceptible to its magical powers. So today we're kind of doing a witch's sausage. In the medieval period, food had more mythology around it than we associate with food today. Today we just eat food because we like it and it's fuel, but in the medieval period, if you were to make a sausage, which looks like certain anatomical parts, and you were to put aphrodisiac ingredients in it, that might have some magical effects. And so the only kind of people that would make the sausage that we're making today would be unsavory characters, witches, and so on and so forth. The kind of people that were not respectable in society, much like myself, because I am a very bad man, so I'm told. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our mortar and pestle and we're going to grind up our coriander. And I've got a little bit of salt in here, which kind of makes it easier. And once that's ground up, put that aside. And we'll move on to our next one. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take some of our long pepper. We don't need too much of this. It's expensive and fairly rare. And it likes to jump around, so I like to put my hand over the mortar and pestle. And we're going to grind that up. And as with most of these medieval recipes, I'm not going to tell you anything about how much I put in unless it's really important, because most of the recipes don't tell you how much you put in. It's you put your spices in the way that you like it to taste. So just don't go overboard with anything. That's the main rule of thumb. And our summer savory is already ground because I bought this. So if you were a medieval housewife or one of those witches that was making aphrodisiac love sausages, you'd probably have to pick this fresh. You might dry it in your witch's hovel out in the forest somewhere. But yeah, you'd have a good knife with a rounded bottom on it, and you would chop that up very finely. And that's already done. And I'm not going to bore you with the processing of the garlic. Everybody knows how to do that. You just break it open and chop it up as fine as you can, and then mash it in the mortar and pestle, and we'll mix everything together. And the magic of time lapse. Actually, we won't even do that. We'll just cut it, and I'll come back when all the spices are mixed in together.
A few moments later.
So we're back in action, and thanks to the magic of TV, all of our spices are ground up, and next thing we're going to do is start mixing our meat. And I'm doing a pretty big batch today, so I'm going to mix it in this here stoneware crock pot. I really don't have anything big enough. My little mixing bowls aren't going to cut it. So yeah, this is like 2 gallons or something, and that's going to hold the 12 pounds of meat that I'm going to do today. So that's what I'm going to mix it in. It's a bit high and it's a bit cumbersome, but that's what I have. So the magic ratio for making sausage is about 30% fat content. So some people mix pork belly and pork shoulder, so a lean meat and a fat meat, and they mince that up or grind that up, and they use that. But I just went to the butcher store, and I got some ground pork, and I got some beef suet, so I'm going to mix the two. It's already ground for me. In medieval times, you would have minced your beef, again, with a big long knife, and it would have a rounded bottom on it. So you put your meat on your butcher block, and then you would rock the knife back and forth. In fact, it's an awful lot like an Alaskan ulu knife, only much larger. So instead of doing small pieces, you would do big pieces just by rocking that large knife back and forth. If you want to do your meat that way, you most certainly can, but it's very, very time consuming. And if you're going to be doing 12 pounds of meat, it's going to take you all day to just do that. So, you know, unless you have a family or a medieval village that wants to help you, my advice is get a commercial grinder or just buy it pre-ground. And that's what I did. So yeah, I just went to my local butcher store. You can get it a pound at a time. So basically my ratio is 2 pounds of pork and a pound of beef suet. So I'm going to dump all my meat in here and get mixing. So we've got our mixing pot here, our stoneware crock. Pretty well full of meat and fat. We're about to put in our last pound of pork. And I mean, the smart way to do this is if you happen to have a meat mixer. That's the smart way to do this. But I am not smart. I do not own an industrial meat mixer or even one of the home sausage making meat mixers, so it's sleeves up and hands in, and you just start working the fat into the pork, and it's going to take a long time, but this is the way that medieval housewives and butchers would have done it. And it's kind of messy, but a lot of people don't realize what goes into sausage making or manufacturing of any kind. So now that we've got some preliminary mixing done, at this point we're gonna add our spices. And the first thing I'm gonna add in, doesn't matter what order you add your spices in, it's all going to be mixed together. But I'm going to add my coriander in here, coriander seed I guess, which I've powdered, or I've pulverized in my mortar and pestle. And like I said, I put a little pinch of salt in that just to help grind it a little bit finer. And I'm going to put in my long pepper, which is also ground quite nicely. And we're going to put in our savory, which hopefully will add kind considerable flavor to this. I'm using quite a bit. They say to add about a spoonful for the pound or something like that. If you can't get summer savory, I guess you could use herb de Provence. That's got savory in it, I think. And then the last thing I'm going to put in is my garlic, and continue to mix this up like there's no tomorrow. And this is a very lengthy process, again, unless you're using some kind of kitchen machine to help you do it. So the final ingredient, if you want to call it that, for this batch of sausage, as I continue to knead it here, you see that it's kind of crumbly, and we don't want it to be crumbly, otherwise it won't stuff very well. So we're just going to add some water, and a lot of people would think intuitively, oh, you're gonna drain the flavor away, or you're gonna water it down. Well, it's not quite how it works. Your water is going to cook off, and if anything, it's going to help to mix those flavors from your spice mix together. And again, it doesn't matter what your spice mix is. Ours today is kind of like a medieval bad girl sausage, but it doesn't matter if you're making modern sausage or a historic sausage. You're gonna have to add some water, and what that's going to do is just going to help everything mash together, and the mixing process gets oh so much easier. It's still kind of crumbly. What you're looking for before you go to stuff it is you want it to be kind of tacky. You want it to stick to your hands, almost like you're baking. And once you get enough water in there, you can see it's starting to get sticky. So I still need to add more. And again, how much you add is up to you. Depends how many sausage you're making, how many pounds you're making, and your local conditions will vary. This is not the most fun process. Right now it's 11 degrees Celsius in my house. You have to do this when it's cold. So your hands are going to get cold being in this mixture. I suppose you could wear nylon gloves or something if you wanted, but it's not going to be much of an insulator. So your hands are going to get cold and numb. If you try to do this when it's too warm, you're going to have a heck of a mess, which is why in the medieval era it was done in the fall, and in the modern era people get machines to do this, which just makes oh so much sense now that I'm doing it. But I'm going to add a bit more water here, and it is cold, and as you can see, it's starting to stick to my hand pretty good there. Medieval sausages tend to have a rougher texture, of course, because they're not processed by machines. They're all processed by hand like this. So you do get a rougher textured sausage. And this is going to be somewhere in between, because the meat was mechanically ground meat, as opposed to prepared with that big mincing knife that I talked about earlier. So we will continue to add water to this as necessary, and we'll continue to mash it until it is the texture that I like. So we're back at it again here, and we've got a mechanical sausage stuffer, which I picked up for about 150 bucks, and believe me, it was worth it to me. The medieval way of stuffing sausage would be to take a funnel or maybe a cow horn with the end cut off it and pack that full of meat, and then use a stick to stuff it out the end and hopefully get some of it into your casing. There's even pictures of them, stuffing it in the casing by hand. You get these lumpy sausages with air holes in them. But we're not going to do it that way because I'm lazy and I'm more interested in having a good quality sausage than I am having sausage the historic way. So I'm gonna make some concessions. So I got this little sausage stuffer. It takes about 5 pounds. So you take a big ball of your sausage meat here, and you want to kind of plop it down in there. When it makes that plop sound, that's a good thing, because when you pack your sausage stuffer, you don't want any air holes in there. So if you kind of forcibly slam it down in there, that is a good thing. And this one here holds about 5 pounds, or so it says on the tin anyway. So we'll probably have to do this a couple of times to get rid of all this sausage meat. If you don't want to go through this, you could just put this in a Ziploc bag and eat it as is. You could make what's called forced meat sausage, and you basically you wouldn't put the water to it, but you just kind of roll it up into whatever shape you want your sausage to be and fry it up. But we're going to put skins on these ones. The water is very important. The water that we put in earlier, very important for the stuffing process. If you don't have enough moisture in your mixture, it simply won't stuff. And that'll frustrate you to no end if you're doing it by hand, and probably means there'll be some kind of collateral damage to your sausage stuffing equipment. So I've packed this up to within about 1 inch of the top, and now I'm going to wash my hands. So I'm going to spin my plunger onto my machine here. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, I guess. I guarantee you that any medieval butcher out there would sell their firstborn kid to have one of these. And as you can see, there's a couple of locking lugs on the bottom. And that's just gonna slide in under, and then you turn this handle. It's kind of gonna automatically center on you. And as you turn that down, it's going to tighten up, and we can see some meat coming out the tube here. So in this little horn bowl, we've got one of our sausage casings, and this can be annoying. Putting the sausage casing on there, you kind of got to find the end of it, and yeah, kind of frustrating. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. And we might have got lucky, look at that. And again, you want these to be kind of wet. You want your sausage horn to be quite damp. You're going to put some moisture on it. And then this is annoying, but it's not as annoying as stuffing them by hand. So we've got the casing on our stuffing horn here, and all that's left to do is to turn the crank to make sausage appear. So you'll see that I've left a little bit here. and it's trying to fill up with air. But as we crank, alright, so we see that we got a little bit of meat coming out here. So I'm going to pinch that off, and I'm going to pull that ball of meat out, plop it back in the bin. All I'm going to do is kind of tie a knot here. It doesn't have to be fancy, so just make sure that you leave yourself enough casing to do that. You could also use butcher string. Butcher string works quite well. But giving it a couple of twists, kind of slimy there. There we go. Yeah, so we get our knot, and now we're going to kind of hold the casing back and just slowly let it fill up the casing. And as you see, sausages kind of spew out the end of the horn. A lot easier than stuffing it by hand like they did back in the day. And that appears to be the end of our sausage. So, get our knife here. And some of that water we put in wants to stay inside, so I'm going to try to capture some of that so it doesn't go all over everywhere. And so now the trick is tying a knot in this end. So now that we've cranked out some sausage, we got a couple of coils here, and we're going to take this needle, and anywhere we see air bubbles, we're just going to kind of poke some holes, and it'll let some of that water out. Just kind of perforate them all along. Anywhere you see any major air bubbles, you can give it a bit of a squeeze, but what that's going to do is just allow any air that has gotten into them to come out. There's a special tool that you can get for doing this, and it's not too expensive, but as you can imagine, it's not that complicated. All it is basically a little tool with a whole bunch of needles. So if you own a needle, you probably don't need to buy the tool unless you're doing, a whole lot of this stuff. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to determine how long we want our individual sausage links to be. And that's not too hard. Sometimes when you do this, your casing will break, which is one of the drawbacks of overstuffing them, I guess. But yeah, basically you're gonna pinch off something sausage size there, and then give it a twist, and then go down to the next sausage and pinch that off and give that a twist. And so now you got a couple of twists in here, you got a couple of sausages. We'll go down and we'll make a third one, and we'll pinch that off and squeeze it down. And so what we're going to do this time is we're going to take the center twist here from the first two, and we're going to twist three in a bundle. There you go. Come down here, make our fourth one, give that a twist. Try not to get the tail of the last one in it. Here we go, and then come up. Our next one, and we're just going to give those a twist like that. all of a sudden we got ourselves a bundle of sausages, which we can now take to the smoker, or the smoking tent as I like to call it, or you could put those in a Ziploc and throw them right in the freezer. So basically at this point your sausages are done. Might be a good idea to smoke them, but you're under no obligation to do so. Probably medieval housewives would have just hung this up over the fire and let it dehydrate and dry, and probably used it within a couple of days, because this is a fresh sausage. There's no nitrate, there's not much salt content. So this being a fresh sausage is meant to be used right away. So hopefully it'll taste pretty good. So we got a hot pan here, a little bit of fat in it, and we're going to cook up one of our sausages. So, moment of truth, we've cooked up our sausage and now we're going to try it, because there's no sense doing things if it doesn't taste good. So it's kind of a white sausage, and we just fried it up in its own fat. And it's not spicy. It's savory. That makes sense because of the savory we put in it. So let's try it with some of this whole seed mustard. I quite like this stuff. Just about everything. And that's a really good flavor combination. Not sure I can vouch for the magical aphrodisiac properties of this sausage. I guess we'll see later on tonight. But it's a tasty sausage with the coriander and the savory and that long pepper. Just a little bit of salt and a fair amount of garlic in here. If you wanted this to last longer, you could put celery powder in it. It's really good. I bet this will be better as it ages a bit, and those flavors mixed together. But yeah, if this wasn't a quick sausage and you wanted it to last a little bit longer, you could put some celery powder in it. That has naturally occurring nitrates in it. And instead of this being like a 2 or 3 day sausage, probably be shelf stable for, probably 4 or 5 days. I don't know, don't go poisoning yourself, but it's pretty tasty. We live in a world where we have refrigerators and deep freezes, so you can keep this around for just about as long as you want. I'm going to call it a success. It's way better than anything you get at the store. It's way better than, your bratwurst and your honey garlic. So yeah, interesting little sausage recipe. As with all sausages, you could, just use the spices that you have. If you're trying to do something specific, if you want to look through historic cookbooks, you can get all kinds of recipes. It's good sausage. You can get all kinds of recipes, and most of the time they don't tell you how much of anything to put in. They just assume that you know that. So, I wouldn't go overboard on anything. The only thing that this could have used was maybe a little bit more salt, but maybe that's a modern taste thing. I don't know. But yeah, you can always add that afterwards. But yeah, I'm going to call that a success. And I'm definitely going to make more of these historic sausages. So yeah, if you like the video, feel free to share it and subscribe to the channel and all those things. I'm on the Rumble now in case the YouTube goes crazy. They seem to delete a lot of people. They don't just do medieval sausage videos. They do all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I'm on the Rumble, on the YouTube. So like, share, and subscribe. And as always, if you don't like the stuff that I do here, share it with your enemies. I will punish them for free. Have a good day.